The cover, so this is from my mom's voice. The cover of the book my father wrote about our family history and land features the crest of our family's Scottish clan, which features an actual severed hand. Because, legend has it, an ancient leader promised a stretch of Ireland to the first man to set hand or foot upon it. And our ancestor, neck and neck with other sailors, cut off his own hand and threw it ashore, thereby claiming land no hand had touched before. My father placed this book in my hands. In it, he traces our family trees and lands along the Hudson River where we have land. How did we come to have it? Have is the wrong word, Eric. Inhabit. I'm pregnant with you, Erin, this book in my hands, standing along the Hudson in a stand of old trees by myself. I open the book on this great tree whose spine bends horizontally over the river. The whole trunk, like a living shelf. A friend tells me the Mohicans, the people here before, had the foresight to bend and tie trees like this one out toward the river as saplings. So 40 years later, after they grew, they could use them to navigate and dock their canoes. Near the center of this tree I'm hugging, is there a ring, a layer of bark and blood older than anything I can see, that remembers another tree, maybe its own grandmother, bent toward this river by Mohican hands in another century. And near the center of my son's body, your body, Aaron, growing inside my body, is there a ring, a layer of skin and blood older than anything we can understand, that remembers the Scotch-Irish people who settled on land here centuries ago, your seventh great-grand. Settled is a soft word for a hard thing. We began leaving Scotland after another Scottish group massacred 200 of our clan in one fell swoop and took our land. 36 men with my family name were hung from one tree. Do that one tree's hung limbs hum their bloody hymns in the expanding rings of our family tree as we move to this country? But we first moved to Ireland because the English took native Irish land, began plantations, and transplanted our Scottish people into that newly emptied space to be a buffer between the English and the so-called savage Irish race. Race originally meant nationality, people from a different place, nothing to do with color of skin or features of face. So in Ireland, the English used good Christian justifications for erasing whole nations and putting plantations in their place by inventing this idea of the Irish, an ungodly, inferior race. So by the time they came to America, England had great practice in Ireland in all their colonization tactics. Mid-18th century, a Scotch-Irish boy from our family tree was kidnapped, shipped across the sea, and sold in New York. Not enslaved, indentured, and soon free, because the English realized to keep taking indigenous land and enslaving Africans here, they needed new allies and new ways to fight. So they began knighting even Scotch-Irish and other Europeans into this newly invented race, white. This meant the same thing they did in Ireland they could do here. They granted Scottish people land on this new frontier, the Appalachians, to be a barrier between the so-called savage natives and English plantations. That's how I came to stand leaning against this bent tree, you in my uterus, this book in my hand, on this same land that our ancestor acquired on the edge of the Catskills, where this branch of our family tree began. Acquire is a bland word for a sharp thing. This book runs its hands along another branch of my family tree who carved name for themselves, it says, as renowned Indian fighters. This book mentions no connection between my ancestors' Indian fighting and the land they took and began rewriting. For many reasons, economic and religious, Scotch-Irish had no love for the English. But here in the colonies, our ancestors saw English law could help them acquire Mohawk and Mohican land. So they began to band together with English under this new term, white. Because this, coupled with their Christian religion, made taking indigenous land not just ethical, but affirmed right. Then this book takes great pride when our Scotch-Irish ancestors fight in the Revolution on the American side, but neglects to mention many Scotch-Irish did this because the revolutionaries were more militant than the British about taking indigenous land. England wants to respect Indian treaties and land grants, but this newly minted American white man can't. I see my bare arms on this tree and wonder at the new skin I slip into each time I apply sunscreen, and how my skin was not made for this place, but for Britain, and how I put on a second skin to live here and not be burned. And I wonder at the burning my forebears did before sunscreen existed. And I wonder at the burning my forebears did before this country existed. And I wonder at the burning in my ancestors' limbs, the killing fires the British Isles instilled in them, and what fire must have shot out of them at what pace to make some of my family renowned, to kill enough to empty this place. And how were they aided in their killing by this empty idea of a race of people whose skin was not red but written into and then out of existence? A people whose religions, traditions, and pigments meant they had no place, no unalienable rights, so we could erase them, and in so doing become white. Enough for me to be here now, leaning on this tree, leaning over the Hudson River. And Aaron, I want to clear a trail clear back to the time my people bent or burned this land to be useful to them, and back further to when Mohicans bent those trees to be useful to those who would come after. And if I can't go back, can I bend the sapling I am in some useful direction, so 40 years from now, someone, maybe my son, can dock next to my bent body and know where in time they are.